Places that celebrate Cinco de Mayo. And would you look at that, it is just the USA and this one part of Mexico. I actually did learn about this year. So first of all, Cinco de Mayo is not Mexico's Independence Day like most people think. It was actually a battle against the French where 2,000 Mexican soldiers faced off against 6,000 French troops, and Mexico claimed victory. But the commemoration of the battle is not observed as a national holiday in Mexico. I guess Cinco de Mayo is actually sometimes even celebrated in the Philippines as well, which is not too big of a surprise since the Philippines and Mexico are pretty much in love with each other. Preferred alphabets in Europe, obviously most of Western Europe and pretty deep into it, they prefer the Latin alphabet. Then you have Cyrillic, which is used by Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, and then Kaliningrad, which is, Russia also has that. Bulgaria also does that, and then it gets really confusing in the former Yugoslavian countries. A little bit of both. How does that even work? Greece has got to stick with their OG alphabet, and actually it seems like Cyprus even uses a little bit of it as well. And here's a world map version of the same thing. As you can see, most of the world is using Latin, basically A, B, C, D, E, F, G. These dark blue countries, though, pretty interesting. They're all using Arabic. This is giving me some like Muslim empire vibes going on right here. It can unite the alphabet. Then we have South Asia all the way to Southeast Asia using a Brahmic-derived alphabet. I feel like learning this stuff would really help you in a game like GeoGuessr. States with a smaller population than Los Angeles County. This is where I used to live. There's a lot of people here. Wyoming shouldn't be that much of a surprise. This is talking about LA County, but I think my city has more population than the entire state of Wyoming. There's only 6 states that aren't even included on this map: New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Illinois, Florida, and Texas. There's about 10 million people living here currently, but I thought it was actually higher. Yeah, it might be 12 million now. There's still a lot of people up in NorCal. We can't forget about that. Ohio better watch out though. They're just right in that gray zone. They might get passed up. I didn't even know 11 million people lived in Ohio. There's such a huge jump between Pennsylvania and New York, and then the numbers get pretty ridiculous. The predominant branding colors of main national political parties. So this first one is the left of center, and then we have the right of center. So obviously red in the USA for Republicans, but it looks like overall throughout most of the world, left uses red, which I think that does make more sense. I think there were jokes about it. I remember reading jokes about how we randomly switch the colors. There's like some great political compass comics about it. I like how some countries have to opt out because they don't have 2 political parties, like for instance North Korea. They just have no data because there's only one party. Interesting that Chile uses purple. They're among one of the only countries that use purple for a political party. There's also a surprising amount of yellow used. So this is for the right, and then there's also a couple countries on the left that use yellow, the Philippines included. Here are the various narrow passages if you're traveling from the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, which I've always thought, how close does it really get? There seems to be like a lot of land, a lot of like tight squeezes, especially there. Then Denmark, it gets pretty crazy. I'm only like ever looking at maps from like a world view angle, so zooming in on some of this stuff is pretty interesting. Obviously the English Channel, that's not that narrow of a gap. Then we have the Strait of Gibraltar. That seems pretty easy. And now from here it's simple enough, but the Baltic Sea, well, kind of simple, that's right. The Bosphorus Strait, that's kind of a tough one. And then there's the Black Sea. Oh, they're going all the way up there. Wait a second, I'm sorry. This is actually the Bosphorus Strait, the even more narrow one. Basically, Russia knows all about this whole ordeal. This long headache of a journey explains a lot of things. This is the Canadian Travel Advisory Map, or basically how safe it is to go to some of these other places. Now, last week I did the US State Department's version of this same thing, and as you can see, they're advising you to definitely travel to much less places. Canada, on the other hand, is pretty open though, it seems. So for these yellow countries, they're asking you to exercise a high degree of caution. For the orange countries, they're asking you to avoid any non-essential travel. And then there's just all the red, which they're saying avoid at all costs. Already a pretty big difference I noticed between the Canadian advisory and the US State Department's advisory. New Zealand is okay. Also for the Americans, they're definitely saying don't go to Papua New Guinea. Also Canada is totally fine with most of Asia, China and India. Just Myanmar you have to watch out for. Of course, as always, there's the world's most entertaining peninsula. But what exactly does Canada have against the French and British? They're almost the only Europeans that aren't in green. Well, besides this region, Ukraine, but we can understand why. Mexico had its own category in the US State Department, but Canada's just like, nah, just exercise a high degree of caution. I'm trying to figure out what exactly this says about a lot, comparing just this US map versus the same thing but Canadian. I mean, we're literally both sharing North America together. You'd think we'd have more similarities with this stuff. Many of the stock market's biggest pandemic winners have given back all or nearly all of their gains. Oh, trust me, I know. We have the start of the pandemic here in 2020, and pretty much all the technology companies really skyrocketing, and then slowly but surely they head on all back down in April 2022. These companies are specifically Zoom, Peloton, Netflix, just to name a few. This does make me feel not quite as bad waiting so late to do investments. Whether I started now or 2 years ago, it wasn't gonna make much of a difference. And I have a feeling it's actually gonna dip way below this line into the future. It's good though. It's a discount. Country sized by total CO2 emissions, and it's presented as a nice big old rectangle. China is easily taking up the largest portion of the rectangle. They are doing more than 5 tons per person per year. Then there's China. I'm a little confused about this. Oh, does this have to do because China has so many people in it per person? They're not necessarily doing a lot. They're doing less than America, but they still have a lot of people. Considering Russia only has like 150 million or something like that, why are y'all so high? I mean, I guess it's because it's per person. They're just using a lot. Saudi Arabia also not the most populated place on Earth by far, but they're still pretty high up. Australia only has like 25 million people. I like this ever-expanding void you can just keep on going down into. I wish it let me view like all these countries. Here's the same thing except only showing a total number of people in millions. So China and India are pretty neck and neck, and India is actually going to pass up China one day. And this really helps display just the huge drop-off in third place, the US. We only have 300 million people. Also, is Indonesia going to pass us up one day? Nigeria for sure is going to be passing up everyone pretty soon. Crazy how tiny of land area Bangladesh actually controls, but there's so many people in it. These two countries just somehow stayed together. You know, Bangladesh like broke off. They would have been the 3rd most populated country. Worldwide coffee production, we have Brazil #1, at least back in 2003. Vietnam actually produced a lot of coffee. I didn't really realize that. Colombia, I think they should be pretty high up on the list. There's also a lot of other countries are making coffee, and actually that might only increase. It's 2012 now. Brazil has still a pretty high hold, and the US isn't even here. We don't make much coffee. It is Indonesia, there's Colombia, a lot of South America or Latin America. You can also see it kind of grow over the years, and it's been very consistent. In the last 20 years, it's continued to increase in terms of, I think it's megatons. The ranking really hasn't changed much. It's always been like, what, Colombia, Vietnam, Brazil? Mexico kind of disappeared. They're not making coffee anymore. Or maybe all these other countries just started making an increased amount. I haven't heard much about Brazilian coffee, but now I need to try it. Female percentage of population, and immediately China seems to be the most eye-catching. They have been below 50% for, I think, the past like 70 years. I think I can make a guess why. The US was about almost perfectly 50% female in 1950, and it's slowly risen, but not too high. Aren't more female babies born than male babies? Is that true? I remember learning that in like middle school, but I don't know if that's still like the case. Then we have the exact opposite happening in Germany and Russia. They're at pretty extremes. Russia was at 58% back in 1950, and I'm guessing because they're using percentages, Germany and Russia happened to lose a lot of their male population for reasons just before the 1950s. A lot of their men just kind of disappeared. Who could guess why? But interestingly, Russia still has very high female population, 54%, whereas Germany's pretty much caught up to the same levels as the USA. Also, isn't Russia facing like depopulation issues? Not quite as bad as Japan, but it's still there. I love how this chart really requires a lot of like background history, and if you know the history, you can look at it and just be like, oh yeah, I get it. You'd really think that China and Russia would just kind of, I don't know, fix each other's problems since China has more males and Russia has more females. But China probably has a lot more males. Don't let the percentages fool you. China is 1 billion to like Russia's 144 million population. This person logged the gas prices from Alaska to Minnesota, so he had to drive through a lot of Canadian territory to get there. Started off at $5 way up here, and it was going to remain $5 for quite a long time. It was actually going to get a lot worse, $6.22. I feel like it's kind of hard to get gas all the way up here. This is not very populated. It actually dips a little bit in Alberta, goes back up to 5. He crosses the border, and oh man, things get a lot better. North Dakota is only $3. Why is it so good in North Dakota and Minnesota? I'm gonna move here. Gas is still like over $5.50 for me in California. I'd like to see more of this, plotting different gas prices throughout the US. Bolivia is sitting on a white gold mine. Maybe being completely landlocked ain't so bad after all. So we have 2 shades of colors. We have the white gold discovered before 2019 and then after. So Mexico's been pretty consistent. They haven't really found any extra ones. Germany has a pretty good amount, at least compared to what they had before. Then there's Canada, the Congo, China, and then it really starts to skyrocket here. Australia, but they haven't found any new ones. The USA and Chile. Boom. Argentina, who was really high up. Oh, so it's just like that part of South America. But Bolivia has skyrocketed into first place after 2019 at least. Why is there so much white gold up there? And I wonder what this means for Bolivia. What can they do with all this? Considering Bolivia is so small in terms of land area compared to the other ranking nations, this is incredible. What counties have a drive-in movie theater still? Drive-in movie theaters are still so much fun. If you haven't been to one, I'm just saying try it once. We still have quite a few in Southern California. This blue label is there's at least 2 in these counties, but there's usually only 1, and that is crazy because like places like North Dakota doesn't even have any. It's already pretty limited, but these orange labels are showing it's temporarily closed. How do you close a drive-in movie theater? Like, it's so simple. Seems easy enough. Just buy a parking lot, get a projector, get a screen, and that's it. They seem to still really love drive-in movie theaters on the East Coast. There are some places that even have 3 in one county, which, ooh, that's crazy. I'd love to see a map to show like how much there were before. Drive-in movie theaters seems like a relic of the past, but we should bring them back. Currently, New York has the most drive-in theaters. Pennsylvania at 29 though, they're in second place. Apparently one of these theaters in Florida has over 14 screens in it. I've never seen more than 2 screens, or maybe 3, but 14? How big is that lot? I feel like Alaska could benefit from drive-in theaters. Like, you take your snowmobile and hopefully it's warm enough. I guess you kind of need good weather for this to happen, right? It'd be fun watching a drive-in theater in the rain though. And big thanks to, by saying this I agree to be a sussy bucka LuxembourgLover, Drew's Argentinian Fat Grandpa, Nuts, Alex Whitley is Mega Chad,
Alfonso M6,
aPhatNarwhal,
Angel Bisono,
Barnsky W,
bringbackpolandball,
XD,
Jocko
Majestic Unicorn,
Marco
Max
Hindera,
Cooper,
Mimoshiki,
Ortin 5610,
Philipp RF,
Robert E,
RyeThePie,
the Mexican 760,
Why am I doing this?
William the Conqueror.
Thank you.